It's time for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. And today we've got an important topic to discuss that directly impacts our local real estate market. And more importantly, the safety of our community. I don't know if you heard this or not, but recently residents of Dockside Condominiums, which is a pretty prominent 19-story building along Charleston's waterfront, were faced with a pretty unexpected and urgent evacuation. Structural engineers basically identified critical safety concerns that necessitated immediate action. They moved over 100 residents from their homes. And Dockside was built in 1978. It's been a pretty notable feature of our city skyline for decades. But like many aging structures, it has faced its share of challenges. I mean, in this instance, engineers basically discovered significant issues with the building's structural integrity, which prompted city officials to act swiftly and ensure the safety of its occupants, of course. But this situation kind of brings to light several key considerations for property owners, potential buyers, and frankly, real estate professionals in Charleston. It's the importance of regular maintenance, inspections. I think the first thing, right? So, as buildings age, regular assessments are crucial to identify and address, potential structural issues before they escalate. So, proactive maintenance can prevent these situations like the one at Dockside. And then you've got, impact to property values. Events like this can really influence perceptions of similar properties, especially in older buildings. It's essential, in my opinion, for owners and buyers to stay informed, about the maintenance history and the health of the properties they're associated with or interested in. And then you've got insurance and liability considerations. Property owners should review their insurance policies to understand coverage in the event, obviously, requiring evacuation or, significant repairs happens. And then, ensuring adequate coverage, right? It can provide you with some peace of mind in unforeseen circumstances like this. And then you've got community and support systems, right? The displacement of residents really underscores the importance of community support and having a contingency plan. Local organizations and authorities, they often step in and they assist, but obviously personal preparedness is vital, right? Now, buying a condo is a completely different ballgame compared to purchasing a single-family home. There are more factors to consider, more questions to ask, and, if you're not careful, potential pitfalls that can cost you big time. So before you pull the trigger on that beautiful waterfront condo in downtown Charleston or that downtown loft, or not the waterfront condo in downtown Charleston, but a waterfront condo or whatever, here are some things that I think that you need to know. All right. Number one, understanding the homeowners association and its fees. One of the biggest differences between a condo and a single family home is that you're buying into a community, that has shared expenses. Every condo has a homeowners association, and that HOA is responsible for maintaining, things like the common areas, pools, landscaping, elevators, exterior maintenance. But here's the catch. HOA fees can range from, a couple $100 a month to well over $1,000, depending upon the building and what's covered. So you need to ask what those fees include. Are utilities included? What about exterior repairs? Do they include flood insurance or hurricane protection? HOA fees can and likely will increase over time. So you want to check the financial history of the association. Have fees been rising rapidly? If so, that could be a red flag. You need to check the financial health of the condo association. And here's the thing. You just don't know, or you don't want to know what the HOA fee is today. You want to know if it can cover major expenses in the future. So, ask to see the HOA's financial statements and reserves. If they don't have a healthy reserve fund, that means when big repairs come up, like replacing the roof or fixing structural concerns, you and the other owners might get hit with a massive special assessment. So a well-managed condo should have at least 10 to 20% of its annual budget in reserves. Anything less than that means you could be writing a big check in the near future, right? The third thing is look at the building's condition and age. Right now, let's talk about the actual building itself. If it's an older building, especially anything built before the 1980s, you need to ask when major components were last replaced. Things like the roof, plumbing, electrical systems, elevators, structural reinforcements. If a building hasn't had a major update in decades, this could mean expensive repairs are coming. And if the HOA doesn't have the money, that's coming out of your pocket. Even newer buildings aren't immune. Some have poor construction quality. So you want to hire a really thorough inspector to evaluate the condo unit and the building itself. Right. The fourth thing is that you need to review the condo rules and restrictions. Here's where a lot of buyers get, I think, just caught off guard, the condo rules. So some condos have strict rental restrictions. So if you're thinking of turning this into an Airbnb or even renting it out long term, you need to check the HOA rules first. Are there pet restrictions? Some buildings only allow certain dog breeds or have weight limits. What about parking? Some condos offer only one space per unit, or they charge extra for additional parking. Can you renovate your unit? Some buildings have strict design restrictions that prevent major renovations. I think the next thing is just making sure you understand the insurance situation, because insurance is another biggie, especially here in Charleston where we deal with hurricanes and flooding. You need to know what the master insurance policy covers and what you're responsible for. Most condo policies cover the building's exterior and common areas, but you are responsible for everything inside your unit. Flood insurance, is it included in the HOA fee or do you buy a separate policy? If the building's in a high-risk flood zone, your insurance could be very expensive. So you factor that into your monthly costs, right? Understand as well your long-term investment potential. At the end of the day, buying a condo isn't just about where you're living now. It's about how well this property will perform as an investment. So does the building have a history of appreciation? What's happening in the surrounding neighborhood and area? Are property values rising, or is there a lot of turnover? Is this an area that appeals to future buyers if you decide to sell in a few years? Just some final thoughts on this. Look, condo living can be a great lifestyle choice. You get low maintenance living, great amenities, great location. But if you don't do your due diligence, it could turn into a financial nightmare. So before you buy a condo, ask the right questions, review all the documents, and work with an agent who knows what to look for. The Dockside incident serves as a pretty poignant reminder of the responsibilities that come with property ownership and the importance of vigilance, regarding structural health. As always, staying informed and proactive is the key to navigating the real estate landscape safely and successfully. And that means doing things like conducting thorough due diligence, right? Investigate the property's maintenance records, any history of structural concerns, and the financial health of the homeowners association. You also need to engage qualified professionals. Hire an experienced realtor, inspectors, structural engineers if you needed, to assess the property's condition comprehensively. And then stay informed, about local regulations. Understanding city codes and regulations, I think, can help in making informed decisions and kind of anticipating potential requirements for property upkeep. So if you have any questions about property assessments, you're considering buying or selling, or you just need some guidance on navigating these challenges, don't hesitate to reach out. You can always contact me at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. You can visit our website at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And, of course, remember, we put these videos on YouTube. We are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We've got podcasts everywhere. So if you don't catch us or if you don't catch all of the show or you want to listen to previous shows, just look us up and you can find us and watch, read, hear, whatever you prefer. Stick around. We've got more news. The next thing I want to talk about is Zillow's adjustment to how much they think property values are going to increase this year. Some interesting things are going on in our market. I want to make sure you guys are understanding of those changes and how it specifically impacts us here in Charleston, which is something a national publication or national website isn't really going to do for us here locally. So that's why I'm here, is to help you guys understand what's happening in this local market. So stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. We'll be right back. And thanks again for tuning in. We've had a lot of really, in my opinion at least, some interesting shows over the past few weeks. We hire, for those that have listened or listened pretty consistently, sorry about this, but look, we hired a market statistician about a month or so. Well, we hired them several months ago, and they produced data for us that I shared on this program a few weeks ago, talking about the importance of pricing your property correctly. We had an analyst look at the impact of the initial asking price that sellers chose and how that ultimately hurt them or helped them as it related to their bottom line. In other words, does choosing a price that's too high or a price more consistent with market value impact how much money you make at the end of the day? And the data was, frankly, overwhelming. It showed that for those that priced it correctly, those properties sold for 100% of their asking price in 7 days. But if a seller needed to make price adjustments, then on average, they had to take about 7% off of the asking price, and their days on market went from 7 to 78. So it took 11 times longer to sell that property than it would have had they chose the correct initial asking price. And so what's interesting is that as we continue to analyze this data, frankly, what I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for how this is going to impact our market 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now so that I can help my clients plan and prepare and put things into place so that we can try and time this as best we can. Now, timing a market is challenging, right? And just before I forget, if you guys want to reach out because you're thinking of doing something real estate related, right? Whether that's buying, selling, investing, or having a property managed by us through our property management company. So if you're thinking about doing anything in real estate, or maybe you just want an update on your portfolio, or you just want a home equity analysis to see how much your home is actually worth and how much cash you have in it, we're helping a lot of folks right now. Obviously, it's the busy time of the year for us, and we really appreciate those that reach out from this show. So happy to help in any way we can, whether it's acting as your agent or just providing you with some information. The number to call, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can check out our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And, I don't give this out too often, but if you want to just send me an email, my email address is brian@brianbeattyteam.com. It's Brian with an I. Beatty is spelled Beatty. So brian@brianbeattyteam.com. So I want to tie in some of the information that I've been analyzing, not just for the past almost 20 years of me selling real estate or 13 years on this show, but really over the course of the last 6 months or so, as we've seen our market start to lose a little bit of steam. We're at a point where, and we've talked about this a lot on this program, but the issue, of course, is affordability, right? We were really hoping that interest rates would be lower than they are right now. They are not. They have gone up. It is challenging for a lot of people. A lot of folks, frankly, are just priced out of the market, or they're having to sacrifice certain things that they might want in their house and have that kind of come to Jesus talk with themselves and their partner or whomever about what they can live with and what they can't live with in a new home, and whether it actually makes sense to move right now, or does it make sense to kind of just, quote unquote, weather the storm. So there's a lot of, I think, folks right now, and I know because we talk to them every day, a lot of folks right now are just, they're not too optimistic about the future of our local real estate market or the real estate market in general. And so their plan is just, hey, we'd like to move, but it just doesn't seem like the right time. So the first thing I'll say is when you're trying to time a market, when you're trying to time your move, of course, the goal is you want to sell for the most money possible and buy something as inexpensively as possible, right? The interesting thing is that the market is providing those kinds of opportunities right now. So for the folks that are a little on the fence about the state of the market, I think a lot of it right now, has to do with how you position your home if you're going to sell it, and then how you position your initial offer and the structure around negotiating if you're buying. Because there are a lot of sellers out there that, we've seen a massive increase in price reductions over the course of the past, 90 days, 180 days. We've seen properties, selling for a lot less than I think what folks anticipated selling their property for. I mean, just pulling up some quick stats right now. If I look at the percentage of original asking price, it's down just a little bit from this time last year. But properties that are pre-owned, right? Nothing new construction, but pre-owned homes are getting a little under 97% of their asking price right now. If you look at this time last year, we were at 98. So it's down 1%, right? Not a huge deal. New construction is actually down just a little bit. And if you look at price per square foot, just across the entirety of our market, right? All property types, all price ranges, new construction is actually down 2.5%. So new construction pricing per square foot has come down a little bit, which is what's making it so hard for folks to try and compete with builders right now, because not only can they control pricing to an extent, but they can manipulate the interest rate, because a lot of these builders own mortgage companies. So they don't mind taking a hit on the rate if they can profit from the build, right? So they're just taking money from one bucket, putting it in another, so on and so forth. But they can manipulate that process. You as an individual homeowner are going to have a tougher time offering somebody a 5% interest rate. That's going to cost you a small fortune. It doesn't make sense to do that. Now we can facilitate that. We can come up with some plans like a 2-1 rate buy down that gives them a temporary reduction in their interest rate, and so on and so forth. But, pre-owned homes price per square foot, we're up 4.2% compared to this time last year. The reason I'm telling you this, by the way, is that Zillow has just come out last week and altered their predictions for 2025. And I had a show a few months ago where we talked about predictions for this year, and that it would be a little busier. I anticipated more listings coming on the market. I think we all anticipated interest rates being lower than they are right now. So that was a swing and a miss, but I think that's pretty much everybody right now. And things are taking longer to sell. I kind of mentioned that as well, and that there's just a little bit of a shift of power happening between sellers and buyers. The playing field is getting a little more level. A lot of that, of course, has to do with where your home is and what price range you're in, because not every area and price range as a seller is, sunshine and rainbows. If you look at, as an example, $350 to $525, price per square foot's down 2.3% on pre-owned homes. It's down 1.6% on new construction homes. If you look at just everything above 550, it's down. The only area that really seeing a nice increase in values right now is the 250 to 350 price range, but that's so hard to find in this market. It's amazing. I have conversations, of course, with agents on my team and other agents in my office or wherever. Just got off the phone with an agent from Louisiana that I used to coach. But anyways, we all have kind of differing opinions on the state of the market. But what I can say is that it seems as though we're in line for a little bit more of a repeat of what last year was, with some, asterisks, right? The asterisks would be that as a buyer, you have more choices, right? A lot of folks have said, yeah, I'd move, but where am I going to go? There's nothing for sale. Well, that's changing. We're at over 4,000 properties on the market right now. There was a point in time where if you excluded all the new construction, proposed construction, and, land and things like that, there were like 500 homes that you could choose from. This was like 3 years ago. So obviously, inventory is going up. As inventory goes up, the buyer's willingness to pay top dollar goes down, right? Supply and demand. We're starting, again, to see that shift in this market. And so planning is incredibly important. Zillow's already, I haven't told you what they've adjusted it to. Sorry about that. But they adjusted it down to 1%. They said, hey, properties are actually going to appreciate 0.9% this year. Well, I think in a lot of areas, even in our market, The question is, has that appreciation already occurred? Are we waiting for the spring market to kind of bolster that appreciation? Or, where do we stand? I think this month, March and April, will be the telltale signs as to the future of our market, at least for 2025. So obviously we stay very informed with sales, and that I follow the trends. All of that, of course, is done to inform you, the listener, and educate you on this process and, of course, the market in general, so that you can make intelligent decisions when it comes time for you to buy, sell, invest, or hire a property manager. So if we can help you in any way, answer any questions, provide you with some referrals, earn your business as a real estate agent, we love the opportunity. Again, my number, which comes straight to me, you'll talk to me personally, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Check us out online, listingsincharleston.com, listingsincharleston.com. And then you can, of course, find us on YouTube, all of our socials. It's all the Brian Beatty team. So check us out there as well. I'm going to tell you all kind of not necessarily a crazy story, but I've sold about 1,500 properties in my career. I have never once dealt with a title issue where somebody said, hey, there's either, another ownership claim out there that exists on this property, or there's a lien or an old mortgage or a judgment that attached to the property that was never settled. Well, guess what? Guess who gets it? This guy. I bought a property out in Somerville, quick and easy flip. Basically you do, on this particular one, it was real nice. It was, I had to put some paint. We freshened up the kitchen a little bit, made some exterior repairs, landscaping, some fixtures, put a backsplash in the kitchen, new carpeting upstairs, a few repairs here and there, call it a day. Nice in and out deal, got it for a great price, can sell it, make some good money, move on. Wouldn't it be nice, right? Well, here's what happened. I bought this property, right? We renovate it, we list it, we put it under contract, and then as the buyer's closing attorney, is doing their title search, right, to just make sure that I have the ability to convey this property to the buyer with no liens and encumbrances or clouds on title, right? It's called providing somebody with clear title through a general warranty deed. Well, as it turns out, first of all, I bought this property from an investor, right? So an investor came in, they did some alternative financing with the previous owner. He took possession of it. He then sold it to me. All right. So I buy this property, have no idea that there's any sort of issue whatsoever with title. Well, of course, as it comes time to close on the property at the end of January, we learn of this title defect. So what happened was, when the investor that I bought the property from the previous owner, there was a $25,000 mortgage, and there was like a $3,000 judgment that attached to that property. You're supposed to pay off all of that stuff at closing, right? That should have been deducted from the seller's proceeds. Well, it wasn't. And the seller basically pocketed, $28,000 because they didn't have to pay off. Well, they were supposed to, but they didn't pay off that mortgage. And good luck tracking that person down now. I've never talked to him. So this is why title insurance is so incredibly important. It's going to cost, title insurance, it costs you $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, depends on the value of the property, so on and so forth. Can be a few $1,000, but God, is it worth it? I always I worked with investors in the past. They're like, hey, just cut the title insurance out of it. I'm trying to save as much money as possible. I'm going to own this thing for 45 days. It's a risky play. I know that now because I have been the owner impacted by a previous closing attorney's mistake, which has caused me to wait an additional month to sell the property. What else happened is it opened up the deal for negotiations by the buyer. They had to figure out living arrangements for another month. They have expenses. I have expenses. They have to extend their interest rate that was locked. I've got the opportunity cost of not being able to use that money somewhere else. I have, I borrowed the cash value of, not to get too deep into this, but I've got 2 life insurance policies, right? One which is really high death benefit, low cash value, and one which is really high cash value, low death benefit. So I borrow from those life insurance policies, which costs me a fraction of what it would cost typically to fund some of my real estate deals. And then when it closes, you put the money back in, all is well. It's a great financial strategy. If you don't have someone that you can talk to about things like that, the folks that have learned how to make money in real estate, aside from those that, of course, are facilitators of transactions, I'm talking investors, there are so many ways for both parties to benefit when including an investor or agent that understands alternative methods to acquiring and selling real estate for profit, obviously. It's what we've helped a lot of investors do. I think we've done well over $100 million in investment-based transactions. Probably closer to 2 or 3, if I'm being honest. I'd have to look. But the point is, when I learned that I would have another month to wait on a vacant house before I could sell it, all of my expenses went up. And so I bring this up because sometimes this happens. You know, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't really the buyer's fault. It was the previous closing attorney that forgot to pay off the mortgage and the judgment. But I'm the one that's stuck with the bill. I'm the one that's having to provide the buyer with concessions on top of all of my carrying costs and additional expenses. And so guess what? When that title insurance check comes in, I'm going to ask that it include all of those things, all of those damages. And so sometimes things don't go according to plan. I'm glad it happened to me. Everything's fine. It closed. The deal is done. But man, it was a headache. It was a challenge. And sometimes that happens when selling a property. The unexpected happens. And so when you're working with a real estate agent that has been through all of these different things that can go wrong in a transaction, we call that experience, right? You want to work with somebody that has been there, done that, and gotten through safely to the other side, right? With very minimal cuts and bruises. It's what I helped, 100 plus homeowners do, back in the day when short sales and foreclosures were prevalent. I would negotiate on their behalf with banks directly to get them to reduce mortgage balances so that the seller could basically just sell it and walk away and not owe anything. And we did that very successfully for years when it was a thing. I don't know when that will come back or if my skills that I developed as basically a top agent in that space will ever be needed again. Who knows? But I will tell you that a lot of investors made a lot of money during that time. And you can do the same now, even with prices being a little high, because there's some stagnation in the market. So, maybe this is just a PSA of sorts. To number one, make sure you have title insurance. Don't waive that. It's incredibly important and useful, and you don't want to have to deal with that if you don't have it. Like in this instance, if I didn't have title insurance, I would have lost $28,000. And I'm not in the habit of making or losing money. I've never once lost money on an investment-based transaction in real estate, and I don't plan to. So if you're thinking of getting into the investment space, you want to maybe have a conversation about alternative methods that don't require huge sums of cash. I'm your guy. I can talk with you about that, until I'm blue in the face, because it's what I was born and raised on. That's what my family did. It's what I've done. It's what I've helped others do. So if you're in that camp where, I'd like to get into real estate as a, investment vehicle of sorts, or I'm thinking about selling my house and I want to get the price right, or I'm trying to buy a house and I want to use what's out there and some of this stagnation in the market to get a better deal, give us a call. We'd love to help you. 843-800-0065. Call or text 843-800-0065, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. I want to finish the show with something that we don't talk about too often on this program, and quite frankly, I'd think that my broker and the real estate commission in general would prefer that I not talk about this, but I'm going to anyways because you deserve to know. And we're going to talk about commission, right? Ooh, the big, bad, scary word that most agents, frankly, are afraid of. They don't want to talk about commission because they don't want to have to justify their value because they're concerned that they're either inexperienced or they're not giving enough to the client in the form of services or marketing or whatever to be able to justify what they're hoping to earn. They're hoping that the fee is just the fee and that you accept it and you don't ask a lot of questions around it. Well, I, of course, want to make sure that you are educated and informed listeners so that when you hire a real estate agent, you ask the right questions and you get that good, warm, and fuzzy feeling about the person you hire because they've been thorough and you've been diligent. You've asked the right questions. You've made sure that you've hired the right person. And if for some reason that initial hire ends up being not the right person, then you have the ability to have tough conversations and, if need be, switch gears. All of our agreements, whether you're buying a home or selling a home or investing or whatever, we have easy exit guarantees, meaning if you feel like we're not doing the right job for you, if we are not fulfilling expectations, you are welcome to fire us. Now, that doesn't obviously happen, but maybe once a year, and you got to remember that we deal with hundreds, dozens of clients. Sometimes you just have personality conflicts. You just don't work well with folks, and it just is what it is. When you're doing a high volume of sales, you can't please everybody, and so sometimes you have situations where it's just not working out, fill in the blank. There's so many different reasons why an agent and a buyer or a seller have a bit of a tumultuous relationship. The agents that do not allow those folks to exit that agreement and hire somebody that's better suited for them are the ones that, frankly, have a really challenging time with those clients because the client obviously doesn't want to work with that agent. And you don't want to be stuck in a position where you're forced to do business with somebody that you don't want to do business with. That's my opinion. Different agents are, they have every right to operate their business the way they see best. I'm just telling you that when you hire our team, we have a performance guarantee. We have a communication guarantee. We have an easy exit guarantee. We're going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get your property sold or to help you find that property to purchase. And if we're not doing the right job, fire us. But what I want to talk about, I guess in the last 10 minutes or so that we have left, is really just the value associated with that commission. Obviously, we had this big but our industry got mixed up as it relates to commission based on a lawsuit that was settled that changed some rules with regard to how real estate agents operate and how buyers and sellers operate with those agents. And really what it did was it added a lot of clarity and brought commission to the forefront of the conversation so that people know exactly what they're getting and for how much and who's responsible for payment and when. So it's been a good thing. And frankly, for us, our business didn't change as a result of those new rules being introduced because we don't show properties to buyers that aren't our clients that have hired us. We're not going to let people into your house if they don't have an agreement with their agent to view it. So basically what it did was it prevented the looky-loos from gaining access to your house. They've made it harder for properties to be viewed. Now, on one hand, it's a little frustrating. On the other hand, it's a good thing, right? No seller out there wants to clean up their house and leave for an hour and stick their dog and kids in the car and come back to just find out that a buyer has no interest in buying that house. They're just doing some market research. They're thinking of maybe moving here next year, but they'd still have to, sell their home and they'd have to sell their business and blah, blah, and then retire. And they're using listings to just do a little market research. That's on the buyer side. On the agent side, they're going to allow that because they want to show that they're helpful and amenable to that buyer's needs so that they can hopefully get hired as their agent long term. So one of the things that's changed just really quickly is that anytime a buyer wants to view a property, that buyer has to have a signed agreement with the agent showing them that property for representation. Now, it can be for that address. It can be for a day, a week, a month. You get to decide on the terms that are best for you, but there has to be a written agreement for representation. Whenever you want to see that property, if, as an example, I were representing you as a buyer, I would then call the listing agent and I would say, hey, is the seller offering any commission to a buyer agent? It's a yes or no question. If it is, how much? Is it negotiable? Blah, blah, blah. But either way, before that buyer even goes into that house, I have a compensation agreement signed with the listing agent agreeing to a fee that the seller will pay me or listing brokerage will pay me in the event the buyer purchases the property. So yeah, it's a little clunkier. It's not as smooth as it used to be, but there are some silver linings, right? You, as a seller, you don't have a bunch of folks walking through your house that have no business being there. As an agent, frankly, we're not showing as many properties to folks that are, thinking of maybe moving here next year because there's just not a lot of demand to go through that process and jump through those hoops, at least right now. And I get that. But at the end of the day, the agent that you hire and the fee that you agree to, first of all, is negotiable. Secondly, it needs to be a topic of conversation. And the agent should justify the value that you're going to pay for their services. So that's why, as an example, when we meet with a seller, we go through our commission menu. And we have different options depending upon what you're trying to accomplish and what your goals are. Like if you want the budget-friendly option, 2.4%, then, obviously you're getting an agent with an incredible amount of experience, 1,500 sales and $1 billion in sales volume. And we've done slightly less in the form of outbound marketing to control cost and in return for the commission that's lower. Or you can choose something middle of the road, or if you want the red carpet, white glove treatment, we can do that too. Most folks kind of choose in the middle because they want the marketing and everything that we can do to proactively find buyers for them. We talk a lot on this program about that, by the way, about how we have the ability to essentially identify buyers for your house and market to them directly rather than just hope that they go to, Zillow or realtor.com or Redfin or wherever they're searching online and they find your house. So that's a big portion of our marketing expenses. That's why the commission is a little bit high. But anyways, the point is you and the agent that you meet with, especially on the seller side, needs to be a conversation. You need to very clearly understand what you are getting for that cost. As a buyer, it's a bit of an interesting conversation because the agent and the buyer are going to determine what that agent is going to earn in return, of course, for helping that buyer purchase a property. So let's say that it's, it's 3%, okay? We'll just pick a random number. Random. Well, you and the buyer, if I'm representing a buyer, we've agreed that my fee is 3%. But let's say I call a seller and they say, sorry, we're only offering 2%. Well, then you and that agent need to have a conversation about whether it's now 2% or if the buyer is going to pay an extra 1% to make my fee whole. Or can we negotiate that into the deal so it actually doesn't cost the buyer any money? There are a bunch of different ways to do this, especially on the buyer side. There's buyer agents and listing agents are interesting in that they're almost like two totally different personality profiles. There's something called a DISC assessment. Some of you might have heard of it, but it essentially is a way of categorizing people based on their personality, right? So you've got DISC. D is like your typical CEO, ready, shoot, aim type person. Everything needs to get done now. Don't care about the details. Just give me big picture stuff. I'm busy. Then you've got the I, the super interactive folks that, hug strangers and are cheerleaders and just, really gregarious people. Then you've got the S, which stands for stability. Those folks are a little more middle of the road. They're very cautious. They take their time with their decision making. They're really not in a rush, and they really need reinforcement. And then you've got the C's, which are basically the engineers of the world, right? They're going to analyze and overanalyze everything, and data rules the world. And I will make my decision once I fully understand the situation. So, again, you've got all these different types of agents out there. Those that I think are really well educated on the market, the process, have experience, have a boatload of marketing that they can pull from and different ways that they can market properties. Or, on the other hand, market you and your buyer profile to potential sellers. That's the other thing. And that's where a huge portion of our value comes in when people hire us to buy a house, is we're not just setting you, for a lot of agents out there, let me just be real, it takes them about 5 minutes to initially service a buyer. And by that, I mean, what does every buyer want? They want access to listings as soon as they're available. So what those agents will do is they'll say, well, tell me what you're looking for, areas, price range, bed, bath, square footage, features, all that stuff. And then they'll go into the MLS. They'll create that search profile. They'll save it. And then anytime a new listing hits the market or an existing listing drops their price and falls within that range you've created, you get an email. And the agent will say, hey, if you see anything you like, let me know, and we'll go and we'll take a look. So they basically have passed the buck to you, and they've spent 5 minutes creating an internet search for you. And then they just want you to tell them what properties you want to see and when, and we'll open the door for you and give you advice, whatever. It's a very, there's not a lot to that, if I'm being honest. So what we do is we're not just going to wait for properties to hit the market. We're going to go and find them. I love that part of this job, playing the role of matchmaker, using our tools and our resources to identify properties for you that no one else knows about, right? They're off-market deals. We've got a bunch of different ways of doing that. And then on top of that, we have a humongous database that we consistently service and feed that provides us with opportunities that, again, other folks don't know about. Let's say you want to buy a house and move in before school. Well, we're talking to a lot of sellers that have that same goal. They're just not on the market yet because they're in some sort of preparation phase. How nice would it be if you and that seller could link up and agree on an extended closing date, something that works for both of you? That way you don't have to put the property on the market. The buyer doesn't have to do a bunch of looking around, blah, 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 blah. There are, I think at the end of the day, and to wrap this up, there are a bunch of different types of agents out there. You need to find the one that is right for you. What we've done on our end is kind of manipulated the cost in hiring us based on the level of service that you want. In other words, you get what you pay for with our team, and we're going to go above and beyond either way. We've got right underneath our logo, passion, integrity, results, and we take it very seriously. And we'd love the opportunity to earn your business. So if you're out there, you're thinking that, hey, you know what? I do need to talk to a real estate agent. Maybe I'm not ready right this moment, but I need to have that introductory conversation. Give us a call. We'd love to help. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or listingsincharleston.com is our website. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoy your weekend. And thanks again for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.